Hello everyone, this is Brad from Jolly Learning Limited, and today I am going to show you our Jolly Phonics for the Whiteboard software. So as of April 2020, this is our version 4, which is available to download and is our most up-to-date version of the software. So first things first, there are 3 steps, which you can see here on the left-hand side. Step 1, Step 2, Step 3. Now, Step 1 is effectively the 42 letter sounds. It introduces the 42 letter sounds for the children with songs, stories, and a range of activities. Steps 2 and 3 then progress onto alternatives, handwriting, and tricky words while still revising the 42 letter sounds. A table breakdown of these contents can be found in our catalogue, but the breakdown of contents is within each step, so there's plenty of information to guide you on where to go. Now, just to give some further information about each of these steps, each step is meant to be for 1 term within the first year of learning. So, for example, in England, in reception, the first year of school, step 1 would be designed for introducing to the children in September to December time. Then you'd move on to step 2 for January to April, and then step 3 for April to July. So they're the 3 terms. However, it is really important that children are secure in their knowledge before progressing. So there's no point in introducing new concepts if they're not secure with their prior learning. There's a lot within the Jolly Phonics for the Whiteboard software, but it is achievable. So follow the program, give it a go, and the children can really progress excellently well. It's also important to note that this is the first year of phonics, but within the second year of the Jolly Phonics and Grammar programme, it progresses on to Grammar 1, and then in the third year, it would progress on to Grammar 2. And these continue to revise and consolidate children's phonics skills, as well as introducing brand new grammar, spelling, and punctuation concepts. The phonics isn't forgotten after the first year, it progresses systematically. So the knowledge that children have learnt is constantly being revised as new concepts are being introduced. So that just gives you an overview of the breakdown of the software. So let's get going. So before we start looking at the content of the interactive whiteboard software, I did just want to quickly run through the interface of it. So firstly, if we go up to the top left here, we've got a little cog, which is the settings button, where we can change between British English and American English content. The main difference being the spellings, and then also the R sound is different between British English and American English. And then also we can change between precursive letter font and print letter font. The precursive letter font has exit strokes, which can encourage joined up handwriting, whereas the print letter font does not have these. Generally speaking, those following a British English curriculum would be using precursive letter font, and those following an American English curriculum would be following a print letter font. It's not set in stone, but that tends to be the way. So you can choose between those. We can also just enter in our class name here. So if I just enter in that, and we're set to go. So they can be changed at any point. Okay, down the bottom we have this toolbox on every single slide, and there are a selection of different buttons that we can use that are really helpful. So up first we have got a pencil, so children can come up to the board and they can write words, various activities that will use this, give them an opportunity to practice writing. We also have a rubber, so we can rub out parts that have been written if there are any mistakes or accidents, anything going a bit crazy. We have a paintbrush highlighter, so again this can be used to write or just for highlighting certain areas. And we have a fill paint bucket, so we can fill an entire area. All 4 of these can be used for the various activities within the slides, so they will come in handy at various points. The little cogs at the bottom of each button give you an opportunity to change them, so we can change the thickness of the pen, or we can change the colour, so you can just change it around as and when you need it. We also have an undo button, so we can go back step by step to undo what has been done if we need to do so. And then lastly down here we have the letter sounds button, so if at any point during the lesson you need a quick reminder of the letter sounds, you can click on this and it will take you to all of the sounds, and you just press the button. E. And we can hear the letter sounds, and then we can just quickly go back onto the page that we were already on. Now, the other buttons on here, we have got a next and back button. So these take you between the slides within a unit, so you can toggle between them. And then we have a quit button, which quits the program altogether, shuts down the interactive whiteboard software. So I'm not going to click on that. And the menu button, and that just takes you back to the unit menu. So we can go back within the unit menu here. Okay. So across the top, there are some buttons as well. So up here, we have got a picture of Inky Mouse dressed as a teacher. And if we click on this, this gives you detailed teacher's notes for the slide that we're on. So it gives you all of the information that you're going to need. So if you come up to a slide and you're not entirely sure what the slide is meant to do, you've got all the information here. You can also print either this individual page, or you can print all of the teacher's notes for all of the sections within this unit. So this means that if you're planning a lesson, you can print off all of the slides, so you know in advance what each slide is going to represent and what needs to be done in the lesson. So it's really, really helpful to look through these. But as I say, during the lesson, if you're a bit unsure, if you can't remember what a particular activity does, you can just click on this nice and quickly and it'll just remind you what the purpose of the slide is. Then up here, we've got a wand button. If we click on this, it gives you a few different options. So we've got a spotlight, and the spotlight can just focus on certain areas. We can make it slightly bigger, slightly smaller. And this is really good if you're just focusing on certain parts. So if you don't want to show the entire slide to the children in one go, you can focus on certain areas. You can also change this to a square instead of a circle. And then we've also got a blind effect. And this is just being able to reveal more of the slide in one go. So this would be good, particularly in things like dictation. If you wrote a sentence on the board and then you wanted them to be hidden and you wanted the children to have a go at writing it, you can just hide that certain part, or you can hide parts of the screen. So really useful tools as well there. And then next to that, we have a print button. And this print button allows you to print the actual slide that's on show, or you can print the slide of all the units. So the teacher's button, the Inky Mouse, allows you to print the teacher's notes and the guidance and the information about the slides. This print button allows you to print the actual slides themselves. Within each unit, which I will show you later on, there is a selection of worksheets that are in black and white that can be printed for the children to work on. So it's advisable that you probably want to print off those instead of printing all of the slides, but there is this option if you want to do so. And then lastly, this button is a reset the slide completely. So if there's lots of different markings, if there's children have been coming up and writing or practicing their handwriting letter formation, you click on this and it will reset the page entirely. So instead of sitting there and clicking undo every single time, you can reset the page in one go. So that's the interface. So let's have a look at step 1 and see how a lesson would go. Okay, so when we click onto step 1 of the software, we are presented with this page, and it's the 42 letter sounds split into their 7 groups. So if we click into any one, so I'm going to click onto the sound here, we get this page and it breaks down the unit, and all of the 42 letter sounds essentially have the same breakdown. So let's have a little look. We'll start from the start with the title page, and the title page just shows an image that relates to the song and the action for the sound. So for the sound, it's a strong person who's lifting some weights and going as they're lifting them up in the air above their head. So that just is a little introduction to the sound. So if we click on next, and we're presented with this page, and this page just gives an opportunity for children to revise their previously learnt sounds. So a sound comes up on the board, the children will have the opportunity to say the sound, and when you click, it will change and it will just cycle through all of the previously learnt sounds. And it's in a different order every time, so children won't start learning the order that they come in. They will have to actually think about what the sound is meant to be. So you can click through those. And once you've done the revision, you can click on next, and we come to this, and this is the story page, and there is a lot on this page. So you can start by introducing the story. So as I've already mentioned, it's about a strong man, and he is lifting a weight and making the sound as he's lifting it, there is a button up here at the top, which is the story itself. So if you don't want to tell the story, you can just click on this and it will start telling the story.
It is Saturday afternoon, and Bing has come to play at Mark's house. They start by having a game of ping pong. Then they play with a racing car. Let's see what's on TV, says Mark. There might be some motor racing. They put on the TV. Look at that man, says Bing. He's a weightlifter, says Mark. They watch the man as he lifts some huge weights. Grunts the man. He must be strong, says Bing. Let's be weightlifters, says Mark. They use a broom and a mop as weights. They go as they pretend to lift the heavy weights.
So that's the sound for the sound. So once children have heard that story, you can get them to try and make the sound and to do the action as well. The action was mentioned within the story. There is a picture of a child doing it here, but it's also written down here at the bottom, so as a reminder to the children what they need to be doing. So you can get all of the children to try and do that sound. And then once you've done that, you can try and get them to do the letter formation. Now, very large here, there is the sound written down, and it's got these arrows, and the arrows shows the direction at which the children need to move the pencil to be able to write this letter sounds. So they can start off by doing it in the air, and then there will be opportunities later on for them to practice actually writing this sound down. So once they've been introduced to the story, they've tried doing the action, they've tried doing letter formation, you can have a look at this picture, and this picture is actually filled with lots of different images that have the sound in them. So for instance, over here we have a spring. Out here we have some birds that have wings and the bird is singing. We have a picture of a swing. We have a picture of some coat hangers. So there are a whole load of them. Again, these are mentioned within the teacher's notes. At any slide, you can click onto the teacher's notes, remember, and it can tell you what is included within the slide. And within here, here we've got all of the different images that are included that have the sound. So you can get children to try and identify them and see if they can find as many words as possible that have the sound. And all the time just be reminding them of the story, of the action. So once we've done all of this, there is also the opportunity on this slide to have a look at the song. So in here, every single letter sound has a song that accompanies its story and its action. So up here we've got Jolly Songs and Jolly Jingles. They're just two different songs, so you've got a choice. You can use both or you can use one. But if we click on one of them, so I'm going to click on the Jolly Songs, this is what would accompany it.
If you're strong and you know it, say If you're strong and you know it, say If you're strong and you know it and you really want to show it, if you're strong and you know it, say
Brilliant. So that's everything on this slide. There's so much content on here, so it gives you lots of opportunity to get children reading the story, singing the song, doing the action, finding words with that include the letter sound, learning about the letter formation. There's a lot on here. So if we go on next, there's then another example of the letter formation. So as I say, you may have already done it on the previous slide with the arrow direction on the written down version, but there is another version here. So we click on it and it will show you it. And if you want to, you can also toggle to left-handed mode just to encourage children how best to be holding the pencil. And this will just guide them round, and it gives them an opportunity that they can copy this as well. And it's a nice reminder for them. So once they've seen this, there is then an opportunity for practice. So this is an opportunity to use some of the tools down the bottom, so we can grab the pencil and you would be able to get children to come up to the whiteboard and they can have a go trying to write the new letter sound down. Now I am actually using a computer here to do this, so I'm doing it on a mouse, which is a little bit trickier than if I was doing it on an interactive whiteboard with a pen, but we can still just about get it in there. And there we go. So you can get children to come up. If you use all four and you want them to do it again, of course you can use the undo button, or you can do the completely clear page button up here, and it will refresh it and more children would be able to come up. There is, within the worksheet sections at the end, which I will show you, there is a page which has a selection of this repeated, which you would be able to print off so that children can actually practice writing with a pencil. I'll show you that at the end, but this is a good opportunity within the lesson, and then there's that practicing opportunity at the end of the lesson, or when you're moving away from the whiteboard software to get them to do some written work. Then on to the next slide, we have an activity. Now, every activity within the letter sounds, these will be different. They won't all be in this same format. There will be an activity of sorts. Up until this point, the content of the slides has been very, very similar in terms of how it looks. This is the first time where it will deviate between each letter sound, and it just means that there are different activities for children to enjoy instead of being the same activity every single lesson. So for this one, if we click on here, we reveal an image. So here we've got ping pong. You can see the lines which relate to the sounds, so the p, p, o, and children would be able to come up, and again, they can come in and try to write the different sounds. And there are 3 different images that they can do. And again, you can refresh the page, so you can get children to come up again to retry doing it. And then onto the next slide, there's another activity, and this activity will be similar within the slides. So there are a selection of words to begin with, and children can try and sound them out. So you can get the children to try and sound out each of the sounds within this word, and it includes the new sound that we're learning, the n sound, and it contains other sounds that have already been covered throughout the program so far. And we can cycle through all of these. There are 10 of them. Get the children to practice them. And when you get to the end, this is then an opportunity for you to start creating words. So you can say a word. So for instance, we may say the word wing, a word that was actually within the picture that we related to earlier. And children can come up to the board and try to grab the letter sounds needed to create that word. So it's an opportunity after they've already practiced the first 10 words that you've already seen on screen. This is your chance to do some dictation really for them that they would then come up and try and figure out themselves. And if we go on to the next screen, and then another activity. So here we've got some flashcards. So it's a matching pairing activity, and children can come up and try to find the matching cards. A game that either could be done as a whole class, or you could have a couple of children come up, or it could be left on the board and children come up throughout the lesson, or maybe later on in the day, and just have an opportunity. The cards do all change position as well, so there's not an opportunity for children to learn what position these cards are, because they will move around, so it is different every single time, which just gives children, again, another opportunity to practice the brand new sound as well as revising their previously learned sounds. And then we've got some more flashcards, so just finishing off the lesson, giving children the chance to revise the previously learned sounds again, so they haven't forgotten them, even though we've been introducing a new sound today, and they can go through them. And then at the very end, we have this story scene again, and it's the same screen as before, but with a few extra words written on which contain the new sound. And it's just that opportunity to revisit the picture. Maybe children can try and spot some new pictures that they hadn't seen before that contain the sound. You may wish to play the song again, may wish to play the story again, maybe this time you want to play the jingle. It just gives you that chance to revisit the page and just round off the end of the lesson. As I say, remember that every single slide has the teacher's notes, so you can click on the teacher's notes at any point to have a look at and go over, certain areas, see if there's anything in particular that you want to add in or change to the lesson. And that is the end of the unit. As I say, when we get to the end, we have got these worksheets. So these are worksheets that you can then print off for the children. So once they've completed all of the lesson as a class, you can then have these sheets printed off. So this first worksheet gives them an opportunity to just practice the letter formation, practice the handwriting of this new sound. And then there is a sound sheet as well. So within the sound sheet, every single letter sound will have a sheet like this. It has an image, the image that relates to the story and the song and the action. It tells you the action here, gives you an opportunity for some handwriting practice, and then there's a little activity here. So the activity here will be, which of these images doesn't contain the sound, and children can circle it or match it up or whatever the activity is that's required within the sheet, and they can colour them up and they can create a real bank. So they've got a bank of every single one of the 42 letter sounds. So that is step one. As I say, step one would be the first term of learning. So again, in England, this would be in reception. So from when they start school in September through until Christmas, they are learning one sound a day, with Fridays probably being a revision of the sounds learned during the week. So you're looking at about 4 sounds a week. So the children can be learning all 42 letter sounds within about 9 weeks. So it gives them the opportunity to learn all the sounds, and by Christmas hopefully they should be secure of their knowledge of the 42 letter sounds, so they can progress onto steps 2 and 3, which I shall now move on to show you. Okay, so when clicking through to steps 2 and step 3, you will be presented with a screen. So this screen is from step 2, and there are 12 units, and each of the units details what is included. So within each unit, we have the alternative spellings, we have the handwriting, and we have the tricky words. And these are going to be the areas of focus for each unit. So if we click onto one of the units, and then you can see a breakdown of how each area is. So we've got some daily practice, so an opportunity to revise previously learnt letter sounds and tricky words and whatnot. We then have the section on the alternatives, the section on the handwriting, and the section on the tricky words. We then also have some words and sentences, so giving children an opportunity to actually do some writing. And again, we have some worksheets that can be printed. So again, I'm going to guide you through a lesson. So if we start from the start, we have some flashcards. So again, giving children the opportunity to just revise their previously learned letter sounds. You can do all of the sounds, or you can break them up into the first 3 groups and the last 4 groups. Just a quick revision at the start to get children going. Then go on to the next one, and this is a dictation. So you click this button to hear the sound.
Oh.
And then children can write it down. You can get children to come out to the board and write it down using the tools, or they can all be writing down individually, maybe on their own individual whiteboards, or you could get a single child to come up. It's up to you, but there's an opportunity for all of the 42 letter sounds. You can hear them.
Ch. Quoi.
So we've got that. And then onto the third slide, and it's a blending and sounding game. So there are a selection of words written down here with sound dots underneath them to highlight how many sounds are in each word, and you can just run through and try to get children to blend them. This may be an opportunity that you want to use one of these tools, so you could focus on a particular word. If we put that there, so you can focus on each word individually, get children to come up one at a time, maybe getting them all to try it. It's up to you how you do it, but an opportunity to use the tools there. And that's just a really quick introduction to the lesson, just an opportunity to get them warmed up, get them going over some of their previously learned sounds. And then we start introducing the new content. So for the alternatives, we have Shy I and Tuffy Y. So up until this point, children have only learned one way of spelling each of the 42 letter sounds. So this part is introducing alternatives for the A and the OI sounds. So they've learnt the spellings AI and OI, but this will introduce the idea of Shy I and Tuffy Y. Now, Shy I doesn't enjoy being on the end of a word, So it gets replaced by a toughy Y who doesn't mind being at the end. So if we click on the slide, just does a little animation to show this. And we can do it again also for the oi sound, shows the animation, the way that the I is replaced by the Y, so that we've now got the spellings of AY and OY as an alternative spelling for these sounds. So if we click on the next button, we then have a selection of words that children have the opportunity to read, which include the AY and the OY spellings. So you can go through these, introducing all these different words which have this new spelling pattern. And then the next slide has an opportunity for children to create the words. So we have an image here of Inky holding a tray of drinks, and we have the three lines underneath to symbolise the three sounds that are in there. The last one showing is a bit longer, so it shows that it's a digraph. And we've got the sounds here on the right hand side, so a child can come up and drag the letter sounds into its position, and then we create the word for the image, and there are a few of those which have the opportunity to do. And then that is the end of the section for tricky words. Okay, so then we can click on to the handwriting section, and we come up with this, which is a reminder of the all of the letters of the alphabet with both their capital and lowercase forms of spelling. Now, they are broken into 4 separate colours as well. This relates to the Jolly Dictionary, which would be introduced probably in Grammar 1, Grammar 2, where we have the sections colour-coded, which just makes it easier for children to identify the words they need within a dictionary. So if they were looking for a word that begins with maybe Y, instead of starting all the way from A and waiting all the way through the book to get to Y, if they can identify that it comes within the blue section, they can at least jump towards near the back of the book. So it's just a little way of linking that in. You don't need to mention that immediately, but it's something to be aware of that children will be picking up on. So this just introduces it. We do also have the alphabet song, which we can play. I'm not going to play the whole song, but that is there as well that can be played for the children. Now, if we click onto the next slide, and we have an activity for the children to come in and fill in the missing letters of the alphabet. So the alphabet is running across the top here, but we have got some of them missing, and children, again, they can come up with the pencil and they can write these in into their correct position. Again, I'm doing this with a mouse as opposed to on a whiteboard software, so it's a bit trickier to write them in, but you can get children to come up and complete them. And again, there is a worksheet that's very similar to this at the worksheet section, so you would be able to print these off for children to then complete after the lesson. And the alphabet extends onto here, so now it's another opportunity for children to be writing them. Here it's a mixture of either writing the uppercase or the lowercase. It's not the same the whole way through, and that's split into 2 slides for all of the letters of the alphabet. So opportunities for children to practice their letter formation of the alphabet, both uppercase and lowercase. And then we go on to the tricky words. So in this section we click on and we have revision of the tricky words to begin with. A lot of the slides within the tricky word section will be similar across all units. The content obviously will be different, but they are very similar in terms of how they look, as opposed to some of the other slides where the activities do differ for each unit. So this first slide is the tricky word hat with the tricky word flowers coming out, and you can click on any of them to reveal previously learned tricky words. Now, you will have noticed that some of the tricky words are in a different colour. This is just that we have the tricky words grouped into small groups of tricky words, and each group has their own colour just to help with that revision, and the way they're introduced, they are put into a certain colour. So if children need to access a certain tricky word, they can have a look at what group it comes from. So they can have an opportunity to have a look at all of them here. And then the next slide introduces the new ones that we're doing here. So in this one, we have only and old, and we have it written here and we can listen to it as well.
Only.
And then we click on it and it changes to the next one.
Old.
So children get that first opportunity to be able to hear the sounds and to be able to see the way it's spelled. And then on the next slide, we've got a look, cover, write, and check. So if we click, it will animate it so we can look and say the letters only, so children can try and say the letters of the tricky word. We click on it, we move that, cover it so they can try writing over the top of them. Click again, and now they can try writing it without seeing the previous parts. And then you can reset it and go back to the start, and you can keep getting them to do this. And this is a really effective method of getting them to practice learning these tricky words because they don't have the spelling patterns. It is this look, cover, write, check is a really good way of practicing with them. So we have that for only, and then we have the same for old as well. And then we have a dictation slide. So we can hear the sound.
Only.
Again, it's the newly learnt tricky words.
Old.
And it's just reinforcing, trying to get them to practice writing these new words. And that's the end of the tricky word section. And then lastly, words and sentences. So it's a writing and dictation opportunity. So here, if
Ducks.
we click to hear the sound.
Ducks.
And then you've got the sound dots effectively written underneath to show how many letter sounds are included within the word, and children can try and write them. You can do it on the board, so you can have children come up and try and write, again using the pencil tools, or you can get them to all be writing again, maybe on miniature whiteboards or in their books, and you've just got a selection of different words here.
Pond. Quacking.
And then lastly, we have got a guided writing activity. So there is an image here, and you may want to, as a class, create a sentence that you could write on the board, get the children to copy. You may come up with a sentence that you want to dictate to them. For some learners, you may encourage them to come up with their own sentences that they could use based on that previous slide of some of the words that are included. And that's just the final section. And lastly, we have the worksheets. So again, these are worksheets, some of which were from throughout the slides, which can be printed off for the children to practice their writing. So that was a run through for our Jolly Phonics for the Whiteboard software. For more information and support, please head over to www.jollylearning.co.uk, where we have loads of content available. We have a resource bank which is packed with activities and worksheets, teachers' guides, software demos, and much more. We also have catalogues and parent-teacher guides that you can browse and view online, and you can download them. We have case studies, research, and partner schools that can be contacted to discuss the Jolly Phonics programme. You can find training by either searching for a local course or searching for a trainer. We have trainers all across the world where you can have a look, and there are contact details for all of them. And lastly, we have our online shop. So if you want to purchase any resources or to browse further information about any of our resources, you can click on these and it will guide you through them, as well as preview pages for all of these resources, so you can have a little sneak peek of what they look like inside.